Good evening. Welcome to the Newberg City Council. It is November 4th, 2024. I call this meeting to order. Could we have roll call, please?
Certainly. Counselor McBride?
Here.
Counselor Wheatley? Here. Counselor Yarnell Holloman? Here. Counselor Kilberg? Here. Mayor Rosacker?
Here.
Counselor Cloyd?
Here.
And Counselor Carmen?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome. One of the duties of the mayor is to make proclamations. I make very few. But today, we're going to celebrate Small Business Saturday. Whereas the governor of Newberg, Oregon celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community, and whereas according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are 34.7 million small businesses in the United States. Small business represents 99.7% of firms with paid employees. Small businesses are responsible for 61.1% of net new jobs created since 1995, and small business employ 45.9% of employees in the private sector in the United States. Whereas 68 cents of every dollar spent at a small business in the U.S. stays in the local community, and every dollar spent at a small business creates an additional 48 cents in local business activity as a result of employees and local business purchasing local goods and services. Whereas 59% of the U.S. consumers aware of Small Business Saturday shopped at or a small independent owned retailer or restaurant on Small Business Saturday 2023. Whereas Newberg, Oregon supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities. And whereas advocacy groups, as well as public and private organizations across the country, have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the mayor and the city council on behalf of the people of the city of Newberg, Oregon, that we declare November 30th, 2024 as Small Business Saturday. I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of Newberg to be fixed on this on the 4th day of November, 2024. This is very important to a town the size of Newberg. Please consider paying with cash, not credit cards. Let more of the money stay right here in Newberg, and please use our local vendors. Thank you. Will, your turn. City manager's report, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Mayor Rosacker and councillors. And of course, these are the events for the month that has just ended. City management selected a series of contractors based upon a wide-ranging RFP for street resurfacing this year. With 2nd Street complete, the city has completed grind and inlay work at 2 badly worn blocks near Edwards Elementary. And we were lucky to get some September sunshine to get that done. However, this is nothing compared to the amount of road resurfacing that we're going to do next year. We're going to be having a meeting in December to choose some target streets based upon road condition data, as well as our street survey, and we're going to tackle that. And we're going to, frankly, spend as much of our tough money as we can in the new construction season. So that's coming soon. Basin covering. In a letter dated 10/18/21, Oregon Health Authority placed an unfunded mandate on the city to install new covers on the existing exposed filter set basins. Keller Associates, working as city engineer, were able to provide an alternative analysis. The cost of design work is anticipated at $95,000, and design is underway right now. The total cost of covering the basins is anticipated to be between $500,000 and $600,000, which is 1/3 less than the estimates that we received a year ago. Not cheap, but doable. We've also discovered, thanks to our help from our friends, frankly, from Keller Engineering, that it's possible to keep the old plant running and a new plant that we build in the future, and that those waters can be mixed without a chemical problem. This does make it a good use of money to keep the old plant running because it gives us extra capacity. The Winooski Storm Outflow Project, groundwater seepage flow from a spring was noticed in the spreading structure area, and that required a slight adjustment to the plan. In other words, while we were fixing that outfall, a channel of a stream came in underneath the pipe, and we had to change the design using more riprap. And I discovered, because I didn't know, that riprap is chunks of rock about the size of this water bottle. So we had to add more of that in order to get the project done. And the project is basically complete at this time, still under budget, but only just. And here is a picture of the spreader structure and a picture of some of the insulation around one of the water quality manholes. Wastewater operations, the EPA discharge monitoring results are in, and our in-house lab passed with flying colours, as it has done every year. Out in the treatment plant, we're preparing for another wet season, but all of our equipment is back online and operational after the summer maintenance and inspection activities. So the plant is running smoothly despite the starts and stops we had to do to allow for the PLC project, which, as you may recall, was rolling out some new computer equipment. So despite those interruptions, we're ready for the wet season. Typically, we don't see an increase in our flows until the ground becomes more saturated, and our operators have been busy playing catch up after that 2-week shutdown. Here are some other things that we've done at the plant recently: rebuilding the headworks, fixing a seal leak, and some other installation of valves on the air system. The emergency programmable logic controller, exciting news to report with this project. We've completed our first shutdown and electronic cutover to the new solids handling control panel. The electricians doing the cutover work were extremely efficient and had their portion of the job completed 2 days ahead of schedule. This allowed for extra time for testing the new PLC. And although there's a little bit more testing to go, is my understanding, the PLC project is basically almost finished. And there we go. At this point, there are just a couple of outstanding items to be resolved, and I would like to recognize Senior Operator John for his patience, long hours, and dedication to this task. The final shutdown should already have happened by now, and the cutover and testing is scheduled to be completed. That should be complete right now. Russ is not here this evening, so I can't look him in the eye and say, are we done? But it's about right now. Here are some public works maintenance things that we've done recently. Well 4, this is an abandoned well discharge pipe removed from the well field connection and capped. Periodically, wells at the well field need to be abandoned and we have to create new wells. This does not mean that there's anything wrong with the aquifer. It just means that that's the way the well process goes. So this was one of the things we did recently. Lincoln Street, 6-inch emergency water main repair and a water tap on 901 McCairn Court. And these things are going on all the time. There is always between 700 and 1,000 work orders completed every month by the public works staff. North Sherman Street, a water tap install, and Crestview Street, emergency shut off and repair. Here is the installation of a catch basin, and there's the before and after pictures. Clearly the one before was completely wrecked, and now it's able to take away stormwater more effectively. And 12 speed and photo enforcement signs installed all around city entrances. And in my opinion, I think I've already seen something of a positive influence on speeding through town. A little bit more cognizance about high speeds in the Villa area. And I expect that that will continue as we continue with this program. Over to CDD happenings, community development. A couple of vacation rental applications occurred. Minor design review for a downtown parking lot off of First Street. Kicked off a vacation rental home regulations update. And the subcommittee as well as council are still continuing to work on this project. And of course, our planning commission members and council recently had a joint meeting to discuss vacation rentals and what, if any, changes should be done to our local code. More to come on that. 3 pre-application meetings occurred for partitions. Planning Commission approved the conditional use of permits for ARC to operate a small animal pet rescue from the former music store. An application was reviewed for a property west of Northeast Springbrook Road for proposed 100-lot residential development. And the Affordable Housing Commission met to review the notice of funding availability for the second round of construction excise tax funding. Staff have received several trainings recently from the Oregon Economic Development Association on OpenGov, our new permit software, that being the last of our major software packages that has been updated over 3 years. Yes, you heard me right. There is no software that we use today that existed 3 years ago. And this is the last part of those changes to how we do business for customer service. CDD was invited by Taste Newberg to participate in the steering committee with other local organizations for an application for Travel Oregon's Recreation Ready program, boosting our capacity and additional resources for outdoors recreation. And over to police matters. Officers assisted with Edwards Elementary with a walk and roll to school day. Kids, parents, and Eddie the Eagle and staff appreciated our involvement. The department did their annual EVOC, Emergency Vehicle Operations course. This is a specifically mandated piece of training to make sure that all of the vehicles can be driven safely and no vehicles were damaged during this training. And here's a picture of Officer Brooks. And I'm going to gush about Officer Brooks for a little minute. He volunteered to do the wiring at City Hall, all of the category 5 and 6 cable wiring, so that we could save on having to pay a contractor to do that, and worked through the weekend replacing all of the wiring in the new cubicle installations at City Hall, because he is the essence of T in Strive, an all-around team player. Thank you, mate. The City Recorder's Office began the month with Employee Appreciation Luncheon executed by Melissa. The event was very well received. A lot of that was spent doing intensive web editing to prepare for the new website, and the new website will be live in February of 2025. That was the last of our objectives for facelifts for our software. That'll be coming soon. After a user experience design process, the team is working together to organize the site in a customer-friendly manner. And there's a lot more words there, but let me speak about what that really means. Instead of having a website with multiple layers to get down to the page you're seeking, the objective is to flatten the data so that you can always get to the one page down to find what you're looking for. And additionally, to make sure that every page is fully indexed with the correct keywording, so that the search bar, unlike our current website, actually works. So that's coming in February. HR news. HR completed open enrollment this month with 121 enrollees for the plan year 25. Alison and I presented a progressive discipline training to our newest supervisors, stressing the importance of leadership and coaching to avoid the need for discipline ever happening in the first place. HR also coordinated with the finance team to put on another lunch and learn. And this time it was about valuable Excel tips and tricks, and everybody learned something cool. Here are some of the HR running recruitments. And we are still looking for a concrete finisher one, which, as some of you know, we've been looking for a really long time. So if you know somebody that's handy, that wants to work outdoors, we've been trying to complete this team so we can fix some of our ADA primary routes more effectively. And we have been chasing this position all year. If you know somebody who would like a good job working on flat work to help the city, please have them look at this application. It's critical. During the month of October, Finance has continued to prepare for the upcoming audit in November. Additionally, Finance has also proceeded with Operation Quadratic. This is our research designed to align our internal processes and software to 2-year budget cycles. Finance also attended a second CIP meeting with engineering. For the first time ever, CIP data has been completed and will be coming before Council soon, long before the budget process begins. And that's because of the new teamwork between these work groups. Members of Finance attended a day-long training for Encode at the City of Happy Valley, where the implementation specialists from Tyler were there to help answer user questions on biennial budgeting. There was other training at the conference for Finance, and Court attended training on red light cameras for the integration with our court system. In IT, a considerable amount of time was spent preparing for, beginning and completing a number of significant migrations that have been planned. And one of the big migrations was moving all of the city data to a new storage appliance that we purchased over the summer. This is not the first time we've done a large-scale data migration. We tend to take them slowly and methodically, making sure the data we're moving is what we need and there are no unexpected issues. But that mission was completed. We also continued to prepare for the move back to City Hall, double and triple checking our inventory of thin clients and equipment to be ready to set up all those desks. The studying of Operation Homecoming, which is our game plan for moving back, is going ahead. Boxes and filing cabinets and furniture have been labeled with their home destination locations. And I will express this for a moment. The move is going to occur in 4 separate waves of movement so as to minimize the number of IT help tickets that will be generated on any one day, to kind of smooth it out. And that process will begin on the 15th of this month. So we hope to have City Hall open right after Thanksgiving. Thank goodness. And here are some pictures of equipment that was destroyed by the flood. And that is corrosion inside a thin client, and that is corrosion on the end of a Category 5 cable. Finally, we're excited to welcome Brandon Harris to our team as the new help desk technician. Brandon came from another agency's Parks and Rec department, where he gained a lot of customer service experience. If you run a help ticket sometime soon, honourable councillors, you may well get the new bloke on the line. And less than a week in, he's already been answering help tickets on his own. Please be sure to say hi to this new guy if you get a hold of him. In October, community engagement assisted with messaging surrounding the launch of our red light running camera in Newberg. And as I say, anecdotally, it feels to me that people are going through that intersection more safely these days. The City Recorder's Office had been working diligently on a new website, slated to go live in Q1 of 2025, and the primary editing staff of each department have been assigned and are working to refresh the pages ready for the launch. Over to Library Land. In October, we celebrated Hispanic Heritage Month with an all-ages craft program and a library exhibit on Cesar Chavez, the nation's first 4-year independent Chicano university, which was founded down the road in Mount Angel. The exhibit was borrowed for the month from Oregon State University. October also marked our first Newberg Memory Cafe, a social gathering for adults who are living with memory loss and their caregivers. This is the type of work that only the public sector can do, where we are concerned not about profit, but about looking after the community and helping everybody who is in it. This will be a once-a-month library event, and it's a partnership between Yamhill County Behavioural Health and our library team. The whole admin and HR team has been getting ready for our move back, Operation Homecoming, now in its 4th edition. This involved mapping not only new cubicle layouts, but numerous trips to all the remote locations to label every single box and crate and filing cabinet so they can be moved back smoothly and put into the right cubicle. Over 300 boxes were assessed and labeled. And as stated, I hope that we're going to be in right after Thanksgiving. Oh, so that's it for the events that took place in October. And as you can see, the taxpayers' dollars have been hard at work as usual. Are there any questions, folks?
So before the other councilors have a chance to ask questions, I would like to say thank you for your hard work on the capital improvement project list. We, as councilors, we need all the time we can get to evaluate that, and we appreciate your working so hard on that. Who else would like to comment?
I have a quick question. I've been gone for a couple of weeks, so I've lost track of the time. When did or do the red light cameras go into effect?
So the red light cameras have been in effect now for just over a month, and the official warning period has come to an end. But I do believe I overheard today they're still working on some data connectivity issues with the new system. So let me defer to Katie because she's got the right up-to-date knowledge of our citations live yet.
No, I think the citation should go live Thursday, assuming we get the two systems merged, which we're almost there.
And of course, this isn't a license to go out crazy speeding. Please don't.
I'm glad I did not make that comment. So next on our agenda is public comments. We have two today. Brandon, I'm gonna say Sites. Come on. When you get there, push the button till the red light comes on and tell us who you are.
Good evening, council. Thank you for having me. Sorry, just got to grab my paper here. So my name is Brandon Slider. I'm here as a neighbor near Friends Park. And I'm speaking about some recent development that's been going on at Friends Park nearby and trying my best to represent our neighbors and our neighbors' concerns. In general, we're united as a community to ensure that the development prioritizes our community's well-beings and preserves the park that we all cherish. Over the last year, changes around Friends Park have highlighted the lack of transparency going on with the development, and our community has come together with a shared goal. This regards Yamhill County Docket L2124, which would trade a good chunk of Hess Creek land back to the city in return for about 20 feet of Friends Park, which is most of the western tree line. In general, we're all thrilled with the idea of the creek land being preserved and given back to the city, but we're also committed to ensuring that Friends Park remains a safe and beautiful place and a natural space for our children. These western trees will be removed for development, which brings up how that the environmental value of these trees cannot be overstated. They provide shade during the summer, pretty much the only shade available during summertime, noise reduction, and a natural buffer from the bypass. exposing the park to sunlight during summer would make playtime for our children and for our pets and, you know, for all the runners and everybody rather unpleasant in our warming temperatures. So without the natural shade, I fear that the park would be less usable. Beyond comfort, the trees themselves also serve as a sanctuary for local wildlife that we're interested in learning more about. So our community has also experienced direct and troubling impacts from the development that's been happening in this particular area. Specifically truckloads of gravel that have driven to help pave kind of an easement behind what this tree section currently is. And this has led to a mess on our streets, damaged easement, damaged roads, contractors driving not particularly safely around our playing children. So it's not only compromised the safety of our streets, but it's also involved the use of the parkland. And we just want to make sure that everything's done properly and safely. But because of these incidents, we've been kind of left with a little bit of distrust in our community with the development. So moving forward, we're hoping that we can have some accountability. The underlying issue with this problem is that Newberg does not have a tree protection ordinance. One of the few cities in Oregon that does not have that. And we've seen the impact of unrestricted tree removal around town. The city's trees, green spaces, and natural beauty are such an asset, and they can't always be recovered or replaced. So we'd like to formally request as a community in Friends Park area that the council consider talking to the city planner about creating a tree protection ordinance. So that we can preserve these public spaces and parks. And also preserving Newberg's natural beauty in general. And I'm willing to be a spokesperson for our community, but we'll be here at every city council and we'll make phone calls and we'll send emails and we'll send letters to politely remind and request that we can have a sensible tree protection law that is passed as soon as possible. So regarding the specific docket, the Yamhill docket, an appeal was filed over that. So we're talking with CPRD about that whole situation. But we're hoping the city can be in the know and be aware of some of these things that are going on. So ultimately, this is more than just about trees. It's about preserving a safe, healthy, and welcoming community. And real change requires consistent advocacy, which, as I mentioned previously, we will do so. With your support, we can ensure that Friends Park remains a cherished space for all of Newberg residents, not just our neighborhood. The city can only be a great place to grow if we also allow our trees to grow. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Jesse Nemick.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. I'm sure you know me by now. My name is Jesse Nemick with JT Smith Companies. And I just wanted to clarify a few statements that were made in the previous hearing regarding JT Smith Companies, our sign, and our ongoing federal complaint. First of all, as was stated, yes, the federal judge did dismiss the original complaint. However, it was the federal judge that himself suggested that we refile the claim, so we did. Secondly, during the phone call in early August that Mayor Rossacker referenced, it appears that maybe the mayor and my colleague, John Weiland, may have been talking past each other, as John Weiland stated on that very call that we would never drop our leverage to begin negotiations, but we are still interested in negotiating if council is interested. But it's absurd on its face to even ask that we would drop the complaint to negotiate, just as a lender for your auto loan or mortgage would never drop a lien until the last payment has been made without some other security in its place. The mayor also stated that dropping the complaint would be necessary so that we could discuss this without the attorneys being involved. And as has been stated several times, the Federal Rule of Evidence 408 encourages parties to negotiate outside of the court's time and specifically states that the admission of evidence for which, quote, conduct or a statement made during compromise negotiations about a claim is prohibited. So you can't use discussions during negotiations as evidence in your claim. James can tell you a lot more about that than I can. Third, while we appreciate the mayor's intention to clarify the record, the mayor's statement seemed to presume that J.T. Smith published the article, or public letter as he called it. To clarify, we were interviewed, but we did not author or publish the article. If you go back and read the article, J.T. Smith was never quoted as stating that the city manager and the rest of the councilor were in opposition. The statement appears to be an inference or an assumption made by the author, since we have stated that we are willing to negotiate, but will not drop the complaint in order to do so. And that door has been and is still open for now. Mr. Walker Miller Nash stated that during the hearing that dropping the complaint would be welcome and that they don't recommend discussing the complaint in public. Well, of course, the city would welcome that. I'm guessing that anybody who's ever had a federal complaint lodged against them would welcome the same. However, to be fair, we've had zero good faith made by the city to date. Despite an acknowledgement made by Mr. Worthy in writing over a year and a half ago that at least a portion of our claim is justified, a good portion of the rest is still to be determined, and only a portion of the claim is invalid in the eyes of the city. We have not been reimbursed for a single penny for any of the credits due. We stand ready to enter mediation or to continue down the path of litigation, but dropping the security of the federal complaint without successful mediation will not happen. This is especially true since the federal judge just denied Miller Nash's motion to dismiss the federal complaint a week ago. Here to answer any questions, if you have any.
Thanks, Jesse.
Have a good evening.
All right, next on the agenda is our consent calendar. Would any of the councilors like to make a motion? Motion to pass.
I move that we accept the consent calendar as presented.
Is there a second? Thank you.
Uh,
Derek, second.
But however, the CET fund application deadline seems to be incorrect. It's April 1st of 2024. It's supposed to be 25, I'm guessing. So that only that change.
Good point. Let's make our correction to 2025 on that. And we have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Thank you. It's approved with corrections. Now, the item I'm guessing you're all here for. We have a legislative hearing. Sorry. Oh, I'm jumping ahead, all right, aren't I? Thank you. Taste Newberg. Yeah, no, I would never forget you, Lee. I'm just gonna postpone you.
Bottom arrow. Okay, bottom arrow. You want me in charge? Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Lee Jensen,
And I'm Katie McFall.
and we are your destination marketing organization for the city of Newberg, for those who have not met us. I think you've all met us, most of you. We are here to give as per our contract, we come and talk to you at least twice a year. I think Will's gonna cut that down to only once a year. I don't know if that's personal or anything, in our next contract. But, we always want to start with our, mission statement to kind of remember why you have us and why you contract with us. We are here to still stimulate year-round visitor economy in Newberg, and to make Newberg a most extraordinary and distinctive destination in Oregon and a best-in-class tourism resource in Yamhill County. Specifically, I know we all talk about it, we are Oregon wine country. Tourism is an economic driver, one of the two. So what we do, we bring money into the community by assessing lodgings, transient lodging tax for those who don't know. That's how we get a portion of that money. The rest of the money goes into the city's general fund and gets the city well over $1 million a year to spend through that general fund. I always want to start with just tourism in general so we understand how the system works. First of all, we have Travel Oregon, which is our state agency. And this will just give you a couple of little numbers that we have. We don't have 2024 numbers, so we have 2023 numbers. In 2023, state tourism was up. For our location in the Willamette Valley, some highlights, our top visitors were from people here just in Oregon coming to see us, Washington and California. One of our goals that we'll talk about later on in the presentation is in our 2 to 5 years is to look and get more states. We love that Oregon wants to visit Oregon, but we want people from out of state to come visit because they will come, they will stay longer, and they will spend more money, and then they will go home, which is what we're looking for. So, next. These are our guiding principles. So whenever we're looking at our marketing, we're looking at what we're doing, we're talking about the different things that are happening. These are the things that we look at. Our mission, we're looking at growing transient lodging tax. We're looking at building awareness through our marketing plan, providing industry support to all the different industries within our community that provide and support tourism. We represent Newberg with other industries and throughout the state. And, you know, honestly, slowly we're even getting out of the state and going into other areas. We collaborate with a lot of people, not only just here in our local community, but all over the Willamette Valley and Yamhill, Willamette Valley, and the state of Oregon. And then it's important for us to be equitable in everything that we do so that we speak to everybody. To kind of give you some highlights, because I know we don't like to get into the weeds too much. Our marketing campaign, one of our main marketing campaigns is through Meta. Yes, we are on Facebook. These are 3 of our top performers. And through this last year, we got 6,905,834 impressions. Before you all ask, what is an impression? And that is the number of times a post are visible in a user's feed. In other words, over 6 million people saw something that has to do with Newberg, which is pretty impressive for a small little DMO that we are. Our click rate is really good. That's our click-through rate. Those are people that then stop and click on those. You've all done it. And then the other thing that we look at is our CPC, which is our cost per link. So most of these we put money behind them. I'm sorry to tell you that everything that pops up is not free when you see it on Facebook, but we put money behind it. Some of our top posts that you'll see in the middle ones, the biggest example, one of our biggest pushes out there is our truffle season, and that's because that is during our need period. So our next one, this last year we saw 14% growth year over year of users. We saw new users grow about 16%. We saw our social media and our search drive 53% of our site traffic. Datify drove over 12% or organic contributors, which is 10% of what it is. Datify is a research marketing company that we use that we, as I've told you all before, your cell phones are tracked. Sorry to tell you that. And so we also use that same data. It tells us who has seen an ad and then come to our location, who we are reaching, who can we retarget by social media ads, who are in our destination, how long they've been in our destination, and where they've stayed and where they go. And I'm sorry to scare you all with all that information. We saw great increases from Sacramento and San Francisco this last year, which is amazing. Our truffle campaign, as I said before, was one of the best things that we did, and it brought over 24,000 users to our site during that period of time. And we got 6.2 impressions through our Datafy campaign. The way we take that, we look at how many users were there, and we use a very low average daily spend. We use $84. The reason we use that is we take somewhat of an average between our Allison Hotel and our other limited service hotels to give you a combined rate. If we used the Allison daily rate, it would be a much larger amount. So we estimate that with all that you've seen, there's been at least $3,389,652 worth of economic impact from us to Newberg in the last year. That's not just lodging, that's people eating in our restaurants, shopping in our shops, getting gas, going to Fred Meyer's. All of those things leave money here in our community. Our next is public relations. We've had a lot of success, and we've seen people regionally, we've gotten out about 36% of our coverage. 48% has gone national, and about 16 is local. And you can kind of see just an average of sort of what is compiled in that in terms of the Lavender Trail and so forth. An example of some of the things that we have been in is we've been in Hemisphere, the Los Angeles Times. Those are some national media. Locally, we've been in Coin 6, Via Magazine, Portland Monthly. And then one of the things that we did new this last year, specifically we started it in April for Food Month, is that we are starting to bring influencers in to our area and have influencer fams. Those are a little trickier than I know we all think we know what influencers are and what they do and how they get there. There's so many different rates and experiences, those from free to what you have to pay them. So it's a little adventure on the influencer, but we're giving it a try to see what we get. Our next thing is our social media engagement. We have great social media engagement. We get a lot of people there, a lot of people on Facebook. We're seen all over. We have an amazing person who does our social media, and we're continuing to get out there. We just did some photo shoots for fall recently to get some other data out there. You guys all know the numbers, but for us, this is how we ended. We got quite a lot of money, which we want to say thank you. We basically spent every single drop of it other than about $5,000. The only thing probably, our new budget's about 535,000 million. Blah, 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 blah. One of those things. I would love it to be 535 million. Can we just say that for a second? That would be a joke, because just imagine what you would get, Will, if I got that. Okay, 535,000. Okay, so anyway, that's our budget has slowly increased year over year. This year it increased about 2%. And then we are finalizing our contract. We have our contract through the end of 2025 or June of 2025 fiscal year, and we're working for our new contract. One of the things in our contract, this last 2-year contract, that was specified was that we needed to do a strategic planning session. We did this in April. Quite a few people, Elise was there, Will came, different people. So what we talked about, Katie's going to talk about destination development a little bit. So she'll circle back to that part to just give you an idea. But these were the things that we came up with. She's going to talk about destination and grants also. But the things that we came up with, go ahead and go to the next one. You can see what they are, but I wanted you to see how we were implementing them. One of the first things on the marketing and PR plan was to be best in category. or to have an award-winning website. We have been in the midst over the last several months, and we are hoping to launch sometimes late in December, possibly early January, with a brand new, amazing website, which we have been working on. So we're very excited to show that off. We're not going to give that to you quite yet. We did start a brand new PR company in August of this year. And part of doing that was we are aimed at getting more national exposure. We want to get out of just Oregon exposure, and we want other states to know about us. And especially because we have Oregon wine right here. And Oregon wine is not known just in Oregon, it's known in various states and various countries. And so we want to piggyback pack with all of that and continue to get that message out for everybody. Some of the other things that we're looking for is to continue to work on just making sure that we have all of the information from all of our tourism businesses, wineries, diners, restaurants, everything. We know their story, we have their information, and then that way we're able to get that information out and market them better. It's a full-time job to tracking them all down and keeping them all and knowing who they all are and researching them and getting them to know us. And so that's definitely one of that. And then we always want to improve our community and industry relationships. For those of you who know me, I will have coffee with you whenever you can find me, as much as possible. Reach out, and I like to be anywhere that I possibly can for a meeting, know a little bit. And Katie's the same. We meet with people on a very regular basis. So those are just some of the kind of things. So if you have any questions, those are some of the initiatives we are going to be working on in the next 2 to 5 years. As you can see, when you go back to our guidelines, we work on a lot more than just these 3 categories, but doing every single one was a bit much. So we specifically decided to focus on destination development, because we know that if we have the experiences, we have the things to offer people, more people will come, more people will stay here, and we and you will get more of their money, to be honest. And then the last thing that we are going to be working on, we're hoping to partner with the chamber, with the downtown, with different organizations. We want to really create some sort of a better hospitality training program and acknowledgement of our hospitality workers within our city. We have some amazing workers. We can always teach them more. We can always make sure that the frontline staff knows what website to go to, where to send people, what are the best wineries, all of those kind of things. And honestly, acknowledging those people that are doing a great job, getting a system where we're actually saying thank you to those frontline workers. So that's something we'll be working on. And now Katie will take you down our destination development
Yes.
world.
Hi, happy to be here this evening. So just a quick little overview, marketing and PR, that's kind of what our organization does. And my primary background is in destination development. So that is putting things into the marketing funnel. So developing product, experiences, recreation, whatever that be, to then be marketed to the wider audience. So it's building that so that there's more to offer to visitors, so that they come and they stay longer and they spend more money. So like Lee mentioned, the 2-year, our goal is to leverage existing assets to drive tourism in the shoulder season. So we're really primarily focused on shoulder season visitation in regards to destination development. That's a huge thing, like Lee mentioned, because we want hotels, we want restaurants, we want coffee shops, all of our local businesses to be busy year round and helping to fill that gap. So by creating some assets, we're going to create a catalog, a list, a comprehensive kind of forum where we have all of our tourism businesses in a way that's easy for us to find that information, their story, their history, their contact information, because then that makes it easier for us to pitch that out to PR that comes through travel media, all of those people that are coming into town. The 5-year plan is to create additional off-season events and assets, which will take a little bit more time. But I will kind of dive into a couple things that we are working on to help do that. So currently right now, Travel Oregon is really prioritized on dark sky tourism. Dark sky tourism is things like stargazing, where you go out and you have someone that leads you through a specific experience to see all that the dark sky has to offer. So that's a key priority. And so we're trying to align with them on this. And so we actually piloted an experience at the beginning of October, which seemed to be really successful. And it was a dark sky experience on the Willamette River. So we have Northwest Jet Boat Charter that operates out of Rogers Landing. He took, it was a small group because, we were seeing like, is this even possible? Will this even work? Can we put a telescope on a boat? And so it was a partnership with him, who is a tour operator, and then Carlton Observatory, who has the telescopes and the expertise to lead a guided experience. And then Willamette River Keeper, who is really the river steward in our area. And so we went up to a Willamette River Keeper property and set up, like, we did dinner, a campfire, and then a stargazing experience. And it seemed to be really successful. And so we are going to try to build that product out for 2025 for some of those experiences in the spring and fall. In the peak of summer, it stays late. It stays light too late. You can't be on the river at, midnight to do stargazing experiences. So it's a nice kind of shoulder season. The other thing is Wheel the World is a program that Travel Oregon and the Willamette Valley Visitors Association are working on. And Wheel the World is a program that allows people of different abilities to have information for them to go out and travel. And so if they need to know, oh, is my hotel handicap accessible, or does, this trail have this thing that I need? And so really it's a catalog of that for those people that are looking for those type of travel experiences to have that information. So we will be working on that with them this spring. And then something that's kind of come up again is esports tournaments in partnership with George Fox. So George Fox has a really great esports facility that they're looking to utilize in different ways. And so we're talking with them in Sport Oregon about how do we have some tournaments and things like that in December, January, February that really drive that visitation in tournaments and people coming into town for multiple days. So those are just kind of some of the example of the different types of product that we're trying to build over the next year. And then I will transition back to marketing and talk about a grant that we have applied for, a large Travel Oregon grant, the Wine Country License Plate Grant. We will find out in a couple weeks if we are awarded the grant. But some of the primary goals of the grant also match the primary goals of our organization. So having the grant, we would have the ability and resources to target markets outside of the state of Oregon to continue to drive visitation. So doing a large marketing campaign. We'd also be able to host travel writers and media from a more national or international level that then hopefully we are able to land a spot in those larger publications. And then, of course, always staying fresh. We always need photo and video to stay fresh for our social media, for ad campaigns, print media, whatever it be. It's always great to stay fresh and also to show the different seasons of our area. And so we are continuing to build that out. So and I kind of just want to end with, which Lee mentioned, is that we really partner and work with all kinds of different organizations to do all kinds of different things. And that's really the great thing that I love about tourism, is that you can work and we get to work with all kinds of different people in different industries with different specialties. And so here's just a list of some of the organizations that we've been working with recently. And some of these are at the local level, regional level, as well as state level, and then of course outside the state of Oregon. And so it's really great that we get to continue to build relationships and within the industry, and then tell them about Newberg and begin cultivating those experiences and offerings to come here. So with that, I think that's it for us.
Yeah.
Any questions?
We've been a little busy.
I'd just like to say for any of you who have not seen the Truffle Festival, it is an event in Newberg that you don't want to miss this year. It was a hoot. There was a lot of people there. I hope you're going to have a bigger facility, more of the facility available to you this year. But in any case, It's a great event and you guys did a good job of putting it together. Thank you.
We're working on it. It's scheduled to be, Valentine's weekend right now. So once we have more, the 15th. So once we have more details, we'll kind of let you guys know.
I'll say something.
Sorry.
We've come so far. I love it.
2.5 years almost.
I totally. Do you mind just speaking since we have people here?
Sure.
I think it's great to do a little plug for yourself and the other stable table organizations that you partner with, and just talk about a little bit about the journey and kind of where you guys are at right now and staying cohesive around supporting our leading industries and our small businesses, kind of like on the backs of the TLT.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things, I mean, I started in July of 2022. I had to think about that one for a minute. Yeah, over 2 years, heading into my 3rd year here. And then in April of
Yes,
this year, I was like,
Yes.
I'm like, Katie, when did you start? So part of the adventure of coming into Oregon tourism, and is really understanding the beauty that is here. You guys know this, Newberg works together. We might do this marketing tourism thing, but we have a great relationship with the Chamber of Commerce, who does the visitor center and who makes sure that businesses are working, that they have what they need to support, they're doing their part. Then the other part is the Downtown Coalition, making sure that the downtown, some events, some of their things. And one of the things that happens along the way is, we all go through staffing changes and different things, seasons along the way. And we've all been able to step in at different points and support and help each other. Speaking of the truffle thing, we're hoping to do that actually with the chamber this year. That is one of our hopes, is that we will be partnering with the chamber. They'll come along and it'll be more of a little bit of a fundraiser for them to help out. But we all need each other. Like, we can't market Newberg unless we have great hotels, unless you guys okay our new hotel that's going in, unless we have great restaurants that are working and we have workforce and places where they can live and jobs that they can have. So we get involved in a lot of little things. When Katie came on, destination development was done differently in my old world. And so it's done uniquely differently here in Oregon. And Katie has such amazing experience in that. It was the perfect marriage to say, we need all these other things like the recreation ready possible thing that we want to partner with, again, the city and different organizations, so that we can get Travel Oregon to come and say, what are some things that we can build here? For us, it's all about having everybody sitting at the table and having conversations and building, because if we do that, at some point, Will's going to say, we got $2 million in TLT money. You know how happy you'll be.
I think Katie will be even happier.
It's true, Katie. But it all builds upon it. And part of that is why we focus on the shoulder season, because if we get that season to be as popular as summer, then that's how you see those numbers, because we need occupancy to be up all year round. So that's a little bit about what we do. If you ever want more information, feel free to reach out. We're happy to have coffee, tea, hot fudge sundae. I don't know, anything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. This is a good time for a break. Let's take about 5 minutes and re-adjourn at 7:05. We will re-adjourn the meeting. We are going to start a quasi-judicial land use public hearing procedure. I now declare the quasi-judicial land use procedure open. The first order of business is call for abstention. Do any of the counselors have any abstentions, bias, ex parte contact, or objections to jurisdiction that they want to bring forward at this time? Other than the fact that Roland Kerr was one of my most influential teachers at Rennie Junior High School, I have no conflicts as well. So James is here to give us a staff report. Let's start with that.
Mr. Mayor, do you want me to give some?
That would be a great idea, James. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certain announcements are required before the commencement of a quasi-judicial land use hearing. This hearing deals with the annexation of approximately 19.16 acres in the city of Newberg's urban growth boundary and associated changes in zoning. The announcement required by the Oregon Revised Statutes, ORS 197.797, is as follows. The applicable substantive criteria for the decision are listed in the staff report under Exhibit A2 to ordinance number 2024-2931, which is attached to the council agenda. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the criteria described above or other criteria in the plan or land use regulation that you believe applies to this decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. The applicant, who has the burden of proof, may have at least 7 days after the record is closed to all other parties to submit final written argument. At the close of the testimony portion of the hearing, the applicant will have to decide if the applicant wishes to submit further written argument. And we'll use the following definitions of argument and evidence for the purposes of this hearing. Argument means assertions and analysis regarding the satisfaction or violation of legal standards or policy believed relevant by the proponent to a decision. Argument does not include facts. And evidence means facts, documents, data, or other information offered to demonstrate compliance or non-compliance with the standards believed by the proponent to be relevant to the decision. Any submission by the applicant after the record is closed must be limited to argument. No additional evidence can be submitted. If the applicant wishes to make final written argument, no further deliberation shall take place tonight. If the applicant waives that right, the council may proceed with deliberation. And Mr. Mayor, that concludes the opening announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Now, James Dingwall, your turn.
All right. Good evening, councilors. My name is James Dingwall, one of the assistant planners at the city. And tonight we will be reviewing the criteria for an annexation, comprehensive plan map amendment, and zoning map amendment at 3809 Northeast Springbrook Road. And I enter the staff report into the record. The subject property is located at 3809 Northeast Springbrook Road, tax lot R3209 02300. The applicant is Ichijo USA, and the owners are Ross D. and Roland G. Kerr Jr., requesting to annex 19.16 acres into city limits and for a concurrent comprehensive plan map amendment and zoning map amendment of 3.02 acres to high-density residential and R3 zoning. The property has an existing comprehensive plan designation of low-density residential, LDR, and the proposed zoning includes 16.14 acres of low-density residential R1 and 3.02 gross acres of high-density residential R3, a requirement we will touch on in a minute. The property is also within the airport overlay subdistrict and the stream corridor overlay. And here you can see the proposed zoning district areas of R1 low density in yellow and R3 high density in red. Existing utility services are available that terminate at North Springbrook Road to the south and can be extended to the subject property. And the site is currently served by overhead lines. DLCD post-acknowledgement plan amendment notice was submitted, and the applicant mailed and posted notice on the site for the Planning Commission hearing and for the City Council hearing. And on October 10th, the Planning Commission approved resolution number 2024-396 to recommend approval to City Council. The development code lists two criteria, conditions for annexation. One, that the subject property be within the urban growth boundary or urban reserve, and that the subject property is also contiguous to city limits. The subject property is both within the UGB and contiguous along its southern boundary. Moving on to the criteria for annexation. The first criteria is that the proposed use of the site complies with the Newberg Comprehensive Plan and with the designation on that plan map, and that if a redesignation of the plan map is requested, that the uses allowed under the proposed designation comply with the comprehensive plan. The site is designated as LDR, low density residential, which corresponds to the requested R1 zoning designation, and the requested redesignation of a portion of the property to R3 is required by development code. NMC 15-250-30A indicates that where large, low-density residential parcels are to be annexed, the applicant shall concurrently apply for a comprehensive plan map amendment to include some high-density residential R3 zone land applied to the areas of the site most suitable for high-density development. The code defines a large parcel as greater than 15 acres and some as 10% of the net site. So the subject property proposed to be annexed is 19.16 gross acres. And after subtracting the land in the stream corridor, the subject property is 18.82 net acres. The applicant is proposing 3.01 net acres of high-density residential zone land, approximately 16% of the net size of the subject property. The requirement is that 10% of the net size of the application be designated as high density, and it is a minimum requirement. The applicant has proposed 16% of the net size be HDR R3, and staff finds that the additional 1.13 acres or 6% of the net site above the 10% standard meets a need for high density residential uses and may be approved based on the following facts. The housing and residential need analysis of the comprehensive plan, chapter 5, land need and supply, indicates that 83 buildable acres of high-density residential land are needed to accommodate approximately 1,400 high-density housing dwelling units between 2026 and 2040. And that's the adopted comprehensive plan as opposed to the 2021 analysis that we have been considering. The proposed comprehensive plan map and zoning map amendments provisions of the 6% additional HDR R3 zone land serves to meet this identified need. The applicant provided additional findings that the proposed location of this high-density land are most suitable on the site based on the location policies of the comprehensive plan, which provide guidance on where medium and high-density areas should be located. The location policies indicate that medium and high-density areas should be located for immediate access to collector or minor arterials and should not cause traffic to move through low-density areas, be easily accessible to arterial streets, and be located near commercial services and public open spaces. The applicant has indicated that the location of the proposed HDR R3 lands is proximate to Springbrook Road, a major collector, and the higher road classification serving the site. Because the subject property is larger than 15 net acres and the applicant is proposing 10% of the net size to be redesignated, the criterion requiring that redesignation is met. The second criteria is that an adequate level of urban services must be available or made available within 3 years of the time of annexation. This includes municipal wastewater and water service. The findings indicate that the availability of this service can be met with conditions of approval, that with future development of the site, the development will be required to provide a downstream wastewater analysis to determine if downstream deficiencies exist that need to be addressed by the development. That the development will be required to provide a scoping memo for the water booster pump station design prior to the development beginning design, and that the development will be required to extend public water and wastewater lines to and through the development site. Second, this also includes roads with an adequate design capacity for the proposed use and projected future uses. The findings also indicate that these can be met with adherence to additional conditions of approval, that with future development, the development will be required to locate the center line of the street based on the dimensions of a full major collector and dedicate additional right-of-way necessary to provide the full cross-section. That since the existing right-of-way, railroad right-of-way, is adjacent to the public road right-of-way, the developer will be required to build full street improvements for Northeast Springbrook Road, including street lighting, and be consistent with the existing street improvements on both sides of Northeast Springbrook Road, southwest of the site, and that the development will be required to complete transportation system mitigations recommended in the traffic impact analysis for future development. The third criteria is that findings documenting the availability of police, fire, parks, and school facilities and services shall be made. A referral request was provided to applicable agencies, and no comments were received that adequate services could not be provided. The burden of these findings is placed on the applicant, who provided adequate information for the city to make findings demonstrating compliance. Finally, the city council may annex properties where urban services are not and cannot be made available within 3 years, which does not apply as these services can be made available. Moving on to the proposed comprehensive plan map amendment and zoning map amendment request. The code requires that the proposed change be consistent with and promote the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan and development code. The request to redesignate is made to comply with the development code requirement of 10% for proposed large annexations. Findings have also been made that public facilities and services can be made available to support the proposed uses, and the applicant submitted a traffic impact analysis demonstrating compliance with the state transportation planning rule. The property is within the conical imaginary surface of the airport overlay, and future development will be subject to the procedures and limitations of that overlay. And approximately 0.34 acres along the eastern portion is within the stream corridor overlay, and approval is being conditioned that any future development may also be subject to procedures and limitations of that overlay. And here you can see where the stream corridor lies on the subject property along the eastern property boundary. Finally, the subject property is served by overhead lines, but as no development is proposed with the annexation, approval is conditioned that if relocated, the existing overhead lines shall be placed underground, except where the community development director approves an exemption. An exemption may be made if the cost of undergrounding is extraordinarily expensive. There are physical factors that make undergrounding extraordinarily difficult, or existing utilities in the area are overhead and unlikely to be changed, and no request has been made at this time. So staff's recommendation is move to adopt ordinance number 2024-2931, which annexes property at 3809 Northeast Springbrook Road near the city of Newberg, and approves a comprehensive plan map and zoning map amendment as shown in Exhibit A1 based on findings in Exhibit A2 and subject to conditions of approval in Exhibit A3. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Do any members of the council have questions for James? Go ahead, Mike.
So just for clarification, the 3.1 acres that's going to be high density, is that something that the applicant asked to do, or is it a city requirement because we are asked to do that? That's one of the things we have to do from the state because we're over 25,000 population. Where's that coming from?
So the development code has a requirement that where large parcels larger than 15 acres are to be annexed, there's a 10% requirement that the applicant redesignate, and that is found in the development code, but supports comprehensive plan policies that intend to distribute multifamily housing throughout the city. So when sites like this that are large come in, the applicant is required to dedicate that 10%. In this case, the applicant is proposing 16%. And the applicant has proposed where on the site that land would be distributed based off of some of the kind of proximity to the Springbrook and other criteria. But that kind of at its base comes from the development code requirement that's based on the comprehensive plan.
Thank you. So next we have public comments. Mr. Huck, I'm assuming that you are here to talk, the proponent? Okay, so you will have the first.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and city councilors. Thank you, city staff, for all your time tonight. Thank you to James for that staff report, really comprehensive presentation as well. James covered a lot. I'm going to cover a little bit less because I don't want to repeat everything he said, basically. For the record, my name is Sam Huck. I'm a planner at 3J Consulting. I'm representing the applicant Ichijo USA. And for the record, my address is 9600 Southwest Nimbus Avenue, Suite 100 in Beaverton, Oregon. I have another member of my team here tonight to help answer any questions if you guys have any. And just going to give a brief background and overview on the site and the proposal, how we meet the applicable criteria tonight. Wrong way. There we go. So the site is 19.16 acres. It's located at 3809 Northeast Springbrook Road. You can see in this map, it's located at the edge of the city limits, which is there in red, and it is inside the urban growth boundary, which is there on the green line. I've outlined the property here with the black line. As you can see, it's within the UGB, which in this image is with that orange or yellow dotted line. And it's contiguous to, we're touching the city limits, which is that red dotted line. The current comprehensive plan map designation for the property is that LDR, low density residential, shown there in the yellow. And the site is surrounded by other low density residential land, demonstrating that the proposed LDR designation that is going to cover a majority of this property is compatible with the surrounding designations of LDR also in the area. And then just for reference, the Allison Hotel is shown there in the more orange and red SD designation with hospitality. As James mentioned, any annexation over 15 acres in the city's development code, it requires an applicant to also apply for this comprehensive plan map amendment to include some of the land that's then brought in as the HDR or high density residential designation. That corresponds with the R3 zoning. So the LDR corresponds with the R1 and the HDR corresponds with the R3 zoning. Development code defines some land to mean that 10% amount of the net size of the annexation area. And this is our proposed comprehensive plan designation and the corresponding zoning. Yellow is that LDR R1 and the red is the HDR R3. We are proposing that 16% to be brought in with the HDR R3, which exceeds the 10%. And if the annexation is approved, the future development of this site will be possible and will allow for key infrastructure to be developed on the site in case other lots in the surrounding area that are eligible want to annex in the future. Here's our aerial of where the existing utilities are that could serve the site with the conditions of approval as recommended by staff and then forwarded by the Planning Commission to you all tonight. The applicant will be able to bring all the necessary utility connections to the site with any future development, which are conditioned to the issuance of building permits, so directly tied to development. As you can see here, the blue is the active water main. There's a wastewater main also there in Springbrook and stormwater connections as well. All those terminate at that south corner of the site. So definitely feasible to bring the utilities about that. And that's really all I have for tonight. I also wanted to say thank you at the Planning Commission hearing. Some neighbors brought up some well-written comments that were well-researched and applicable. we appreciate those and they provided good suggestions. Most of them were related to the future development of the site, which is not before you all tonight. But we're going to take those into consideration and just wanted to say thanks to them for providing that well-written comment. And thanks for your time and happy to answer any questions.
Robin?
Did you say you don't really have a plan yet for what's gonna go in there? I'm curious about the high density residential, because I did read
Sure.
one comment. And I didn't even know this was part of our comprehensive plan. Are they gonna be apartments, condos? What are we talking?
So we've submitted a development application to the city. It has not been deemed complete yet, so it's in the 30-day completeness review. At this point, we're not proposing any apartment buildings. It's a single-family detached subdivision that we're proposing. And again, we're not deemed complete yet, so things could change, but at this point, that's not what we're not proposing, like super high density apartment buildings at this time. But yeah, it is a requirement, as we mentioned, by the city to bring in that land. And so we're following that criteria. Thanks.
I'd like to follow up then.
Sure.
What are your high-density projects going to be if they're not apartments?
So we have proposed a development application through the PUD procedures, which is another requirement that if you are to develop any single-family homes on any R3 lands brought into or new lots created in the city prior or after November 1970 something, you do have to use the PUD. So again, right now we're proposing single-family homes on those R3 lands as well as the R1 lands.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Next, by the way, I only have two public comments here, one that you just heard and one other. Are there any other here to speak about this that didn't fill out a form? Thank you. So now we have somebody who is an opponent. Tracy Wagner?
My name's Tracy Wagner, and I wrote a letter on behalf of Scott Huffman and myself. We live on Benjamin Road, and we have some concerns with the proposed annexation, and I'm going to read just so I can stay on track, please. Newberg is cherished for its small-town atmosphere, renowned wineries, and stunning natural surroundings, which contribute to its appeal as a desirable place to live. However, we have specific concerns regarding the proposed annexation. The first one is compatibility with the surrounding area. On page 3 of the proposal, the annexation document states the development is stated to be compatible with the surrounding area. However, the property is currently designated as low density and is proposed to change to R1, R3. And I believe the proposal calls out 104 homes in the subdivision, which definitely changes the feel of the area surrounding it. We believe the development would be more compatible if it were modeled after Ellis Estates on Bell Road and Vista Glen subdivision on Ellery Drive, offering larger lot sizes and fewer homes to reduce environmental impact. We've lived in our home for 8 years, and we bought it with the understanding that we were in a 2.5 acre, and the homes in the subdivisions I just mentioned, I believe, are in the same position, and adding 104 homes as a neighbor doesn't seem to fit with the local feel. We're all on wells, so the proposed density raises questions about the water supply available to Newberg. This annexation would place an additional burden on the city's water supply and on homes near the annexation that depend on wells. It is imperative to clarify how the project plans to secure water resources and what measures will be implemented to ensure the existing residents' reline wells are not negatively impacted. Thirdly, there's some traffic safety issues. The traffic report did not adequately address concerns about traffic flow on Springbrook Road. The current access point at Springbrook and Benjamin Road presents visibility issues in both directions. Limited sight lines could lead to accidents, especially as drivers often fail to stop at the stop sign on Benjamin Road, creating dangerous situations for all those who do obey the rules. The increased traffic raises serious safety concerns for accessing Springbrook from Benjamin Road. The speed limit on Benjamin Road is 40 miles per hour, with cars traveling at higher speeds and passing, although the road is designated as no passing. Benjamin Road is currently a country road. Does the county have the additional funds to maintain the additional increase in traffic? And is there a consideration to lower the speed limit to match Springbrook Road on Benjamin Road? There, with the subdivisions that have gone in on Bell Road and up above on Springbrook Road, we've already seen quite an increase in traffic on our road. And there's a fair amount of speeding. It is a country road. We don't have sidewalks. It's dangerous if people are walking and running already. Access and traffic flow is our fourth concern. The proposed development has identified a single entry and exit point onto Springbrook Road. Have there been considerations for traffic entering Springbrook Road at Benjamin? Additionally, a Benjamin Road is posted as no through truck traffic. Yet the signs are difficult to see. GPS systems sometimes route drivers through the area, exacerbating the traffic issues. If and when construction begins, how will traffic be addressed? The traffic report for Benjamin Road presents numbers that seem low and may not accurately reflect actual traffic. Does the study account for the projected increased traffic from the completion of the Crestview Crossing development and the homes being built in the Colina subdivision on Mountain View? A thorough review and clarification of these numbers are essential before proceeding with such a significant development. In conclusion, the safety of our community must be top priority when considering this annexation. We urge the Newberg Planning Commission to reconsider this proposal, taking into account the pressing traffic concerns, implications of water supply, and the overall impact of our community. Thank you for listening to our concerns.
Thank you. I should have asked, were there any questions for these particular opponents? We do not have in the packet any public agency letters or comments. Is that correct?
Yeah, there is an exhibit, contains over 200 pages of agency comments.
We're okay. Obviously, some of the counselors might not have read all 200 pages. Were there any objections from any of the public agencies about this proposal?
The only agency referral that was received was from the city's Public Works Engineering and Maintenance, discussing the findings for public service, roads, water, wastewater that were incorporated into the findings. And then from Public Works Maintenance, discussing crosswalk striping and stormwater maintenance on the site itself for a future development. So no other conflicts were noted from external agencies.
Thank you. So at this point, I'm going to close public testimony. Final comments from the staff. I'm assuming that was your final comment. What's that? Yeah.
Yeah, so staff's recommendation is to move to adopt ordinance number 2024-2931, which annexes property at 3809 Northeast Springbrook Road into the city of Newberg and approves a comprehensive plan, map, and zoning map amendment as shown in Exhibit A1 based on findings in Exhibit A2 and subject to conditions of approval in Exhibit A3.
And James, at this point, I know you had some legal announcements that you're going to make.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And before I make the announcements, I just want to inquire as to whether we want to allow the applicant to rebut any of the comments that were made. They could have an opportunity to do so if that's the will of council.
Would you like to rebut? Okay, come on up.
Thank you for the opportunity. Again, Sam Huck. Thank you guys for your comments. We appreciate it. Those two housing developments are outside the UGB and not able to be annexed, and so they're different rules for development apply. We agree that it's a beautiful housing development, but this one will look slightly different. In terms of the water supply, we're going to be working with city staff on, through those conditions of approval, that the future development will need to meet all the city requirements and city specifications to ensure that water supply is adequate to not only the development, but not having a negative impact on the surrounding communities. But that will be reviewed, through the review of the development. At Benjamin Road, that intersection, there is likely to be improvements required at the intersection of the proposed development and Springbrook, which should work to improve those site distances that they're identifying, that we're going to be working again with the city engineer and city staff to make sure that that's a safe intersection. And then in terms of access and traffic via Benjamin Road, I believe that the closure of Benjamin Road to the highway will be completed before this development's construction begins. And so there should be it shouldn't be possible for any construction traffic or any other traffic to go from the highway to the proposed development. That closure will be complete, and normal and construction traffic will have to route the approved ways. So that's just my rebuttal, I guess. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, Mr. Walker, would you like to make the announcements?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I'm going to ask the applicant, Mr. Huck, I'll direct this inquiry to you, whether the applicant waives the 7-day timeline to submit a final written argument.
Yes, we will waive that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huck. So with public comment closed and the 7-day timeline for the final written argument waived, I'll now read the post-hearing announcements. If the decision is not made tonight and continued to another date, the record could be reopened at that later date by motion of the council. Therefore, do not assume no further evidence will be taken. If the decision is made tonight, the council has the authority to reconsider the decision following proper procedure. This motion to reconsider is usually required to be made at the next meeting of the city council. The fact that the council could reconsider their decision does not affect the length of time for appeal of that decision. Mr. Mayor, that concludes the post-hearing announcements.
Thank you. So it's now time for our deliberations. Anybody have questions or comments that they would like to make?
I guess.
Elise?
So just to be clear, we're not, I understand, but just for people in the audience too, but we are not making a decision on the development tonight. This is strictly annexation for it to come back after the completion of the application, at which time we can get more community input and neighbor feedback. Is that correct? Okay.
Counselor McBride.
I mean, so it seems like the applicant has met all the criteria. You know, I'm curious to see on down the road what the high density is. Quite frankly, I don't like that part. And so, but in my opinion, I mean, they've done their due diligence. They've met all the criteria that makes it available. So I don't have any other questions. I'm ready to move forward.
I would like to state publicly that Oregon's land use laws don't give us any leeway here. I personally would like larger lots too. When I was young, lots were 10,000 square feet. They're now a whole lot smaller than that, and the state demands that. The high density can be built any place that you can build a single family home in Oregon with the proper procedures. So we don't have a lot to say about whether or not or how this property gets developed. You can thank our current governor. It was her bill. It was passed, House Bill 2001, that forced the city our size into making these requirements. So the council may agree with you on things such as lot sizes, but it's out of our hands. We can't touch it. So that being said, are there any more comments, or would somebody like to make a motion?
I move that we adopt ordinance number 2024-2931 and read by title only.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Would you?
In front of the council for adoption is ordinance number 2024-2931, an ordinance annexing 19.16 acres, Yamhill County tax lot R 320902-300 into the city of Newberg and change the zoning from Yamhill County zoning to City of Newberg Low Density Residential R1 zoning, and approve a comprehensive plan map and zoning map amendment to change 3.02 acres of City of Newberg Low Density Residential R1 zoning to City of Newberg High Density Residential R3 zoning.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further comment? At this point, let's vote. All in favor of approving this motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is a quasi-judicial. We need a roll call vote. Rachel?
All right, Counselor McBride,
Yes.
Counselor Wheatley,
Yes.
Counselor Yarnell Holloman,
Yes.
Counselor Kilberg,
Yes.
Mayor Rosacker,
Yes.
Counselor Cloyd,
Yes.
Counselor Carmen.
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion passes unanimously. So our next item on our agenda is the utility billing policy update.
Okay. I don't have a presentation on this because you guys have already heard it. I did want to point out in the policy, there were two small changes that I added, so I just wanted to highlight those for you. There was one section that we added called collection of money. This is basically to kind of help us with how payments are made. So we recently had an issue for court where a defendant came in to pay an $1,800 citation in pennies. And they brought a big duffel bag of change for us. So we just wanted to put something in here that says we only take so much of change, and we wrote a very similar policy for court as well that the judge signed. So that would be impossible for us to count $1,800 worth of pennies. So
You have to tell us how you handled that situation.
luckily, we already had a policy that the judge signed many years ago stating that we only accept $2 worth of change. So they had to go down to the bank and get us $100 bills. Yeah, but you know,
So then you already had a policy. I missed something.
we had one just for court that the judge had issued many years ago. So we were able to provide that because it was for a court citation, but we wanted it, we figured it's only a matter of time before it happens for utility billing or something else. So we wanted to add that to the policy. This is very similar to what we have for court also. So I added that in after you guys saw it last time. And then there was one other section under closing accounts. We added a section for interim billing. So we've had a lot of requests from landlords where they have a property that's a rental. And typically what they have to do is if like maybe they have a week in between tenants coming in where they're going to be cleaning. What they would have to do under our current policy is they'd have to fill out a form to have it come back into their name for that week before the new tenant comes in. So with the interim billing, they would just fill out one form once, and then we would have it on file that when the tenant leaves, it goes back in their name, so they don't have to fill out paperwork every time. So that's just one section that we added also to the policy since you guys last saw it. Other than that, there haven't been any changes to it.
Is there any public or any comment?
I have a comment.
Counselor Holloman.
Okay, so it's still in there then, your recommendation is still to include that if, remember the scenario, okay,
And I think I didn't explain it well. This is about the renters,
okay,
right?
go again.
Yeah, and I think I didn't explain it well last time. So I think you're referring to if a renter leaves with a balance owing in excess of $500, the account will go into and remain in the name of the landlord, right? That's okay. So I think to clarify, we still will go after the tenant who owes that money. We'll still be trying to claim our money from them. It's just that the landlord will have to keep the utilities in their name for the next tenant until that balance is paid from the old tenant. That's the only clarification on that. It's just that we want the landlord to be trying to help us collect in some way from the old tenant. Hopefully that clarifies, because I think that was confusing when I was explaining it last time.
Sorry. So would that be the credit history then of the landlord, obviously, right?
Yes, it would. Yes, it would be in the landlord.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so uncomfortable with this.
Go for the new tenant.
The tenant that is, so if a lease moves out and I don't pay my bill and it's over $500, that, and we're hoping that the landlord is going to support in collection.
They
But
won't,
who
the
is-
landlord will not be responsible for that.
Okay.
They just can't transfer it to a new tenant.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was the piece I think we were confused on. Yeah. So we still will try and collect from the old tenant. Yeah.
So I don't want to get off track, but if we go after the old tenant, I mean, that's difficult to do. You have to take them to like small claims court or something like that. And then, I mean, how successful are we? I mean, we just basically write most of that off, or are we very successful in collecting?
Our collections method would be through, going to collections for them, and that's what we would do for That's what we've typically done now for most things. That's why we're adding for the liens, but only for the large amounts if it's a exceptional circumstance deemed by the city manager. But for the most part, it's through collections. So some we do, some we don't.
Oh, I need clarification now. If we're not going to allow the landlord to transfer it to another person until the original debt is paid, what if it doesn't get paid for years?
Then if the landlord wants to rent to somebody else, it's got to be in the landlord's name. Yeah. So then the tenant would have to pay the landlord, or the landlord would be responsible. Yes. Yes.
I happen to know, I bought a lot once in Newport, and the renter left owing $300 and some, and they had no problem telling me I had to pay it before I could do anything at all with the property. So it's effective.
Yeah.
Mike?
So are we putting any undue pressure on on the landlord at all? By, it seems like he's, I guess, stuck with it. Well, somebody has to pay it, I guess, so.
And they won't necessarily have to pay it. It's just if they want a new tenant to move in, they can't transfer it to the new tenant's name. It has to stay in the landlord's name until the old tenant pays for their bill. And we still will do our normal collection efforts to the old tenant. It just, to prevent from having the same property have multiple outstanding balances, we want the landlord to be managing some of that.
If there's no further discussion, would somebody like to make a motion? Alvin?
I move we adopt resolution 2024-3951.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to adopt resolution 2024-3951. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'm on the next one, so I won't go anywhere.
Go ahead.
Katie, can I make an initial brief remark?
Yes.
Okay.
You may have to help me get to it, Rachel.
Hmm? Oh, yeah.
That's-
So I just wanted to mention that tonight you have before you a resolution to initiate the next phase of the biennial budget process. With council approval, there will be another step later. Lots of steps on this one. And the step that will come later will be an ordinance change package. Now, for awareness, we've put the ordinance change package in the packet, but we're not talking tonight about the ordinances, just the resolution. We just wanted to show you everything. And I also gave each of you a printout of the language that will appear for the ordinance change at a future meeting. But tonight, it's just it's a resolution.
Thank you. Go ahead, Katie.
All right. So we're going to briefly go over the biennial budgets and why they are a good thing. So Oregon budget law allows for us to have either a 12-month annual budget or a 24-month biennial budget period. So a lot of budgets now in Oregon are moving towards this 24-month biennial budget for a lot of reasons, which I'm going to go over. There are several cities in Oregon already on biennial budgets. A lot of these we actually talked to. We've talked to Ashland, we've talked to Hillsborough and Eugene and West Lynn, and we've gotten a lot of really good feedback from them about things that they did during their implementation process and just some different tips and tricks on how to make biennial budgeting successful for them. So reasons to move for a biennial budget. So one of our big reasons is better alignment for our capital project spending. Typically, capital projects don't spend in one fiscal year. So this will kind of help us better see out the project for the whole budget period, because generally capital projects take about 14 months to 2 years. So this will be able to see the whole project and the whole budget. Longer term outlook planning, this way we'll be able to have kind of a more of a outlook of what we're doing for our budget and our revenue projections. It frees up staff capacity to focus on other council initiatives during that off year. It aligns better with elected official terms. There's time and money saving for document production. There's flexibility in budget management within our departments. It aligns better with the budget for the state's budget, with the PERS rates in particular, because those come out every odd year. So every odd year of a biennium, the PERS rates are issued for the state's budget. And then it aligns better with just our CBA negotiations because we've already budgeted out for those particular years. So what's different and what's the same? So things that are going to stay the same are the annual levy of the property taxes by city council. So those will still need to come every fiscal year to city council to approve. Supplemental budgets, you'll just see fewer of them, which is good. We'll still have our annual audit. And then the budget committee process will remain virtually the same, except they'll be approving 2 years at once. And things that are going to kind of change. So there'll be a 2-year budget that'll allow for more flexibility of spending. There'll be one budget that's produced every 2 years instead of every year. And the annual budget process, we'll have a midpoint check-in during that off year with the budget committee just to go over things that have changed. And the budget committee members will be appointed to 4-year terms instead of a 3-year term that they're appointed to now. Some other changes to the budget process. So the budget committee will meet during, like they normally do during the odd years, to approve the biennial budget. And then during the even years, there'll be one midpoint check-in to discuss anything that's different going into that second biennium. Again, the property taxes will need to be levied every year by city council, regardless of whether it's an annual or biennial budget. And the state shared revenues are certified 2 years at a time when you do a biennial budget. And so this is our proposed budget calendar for this current upcoming budget if we were to move to a 2-year budget process. Just a couple of things I wanted to highlight on here for the February 3rd council meeting. I wanted to just kind of give more of an in-depth talk about the property tax increase. Ultimately, that's decided during the budget committee process, but we wanted to give kind of a more talk about where the general fund is at and just how our revenues are looking and just whether or not, we're looking at needing to take that property tax increase for the next 2 years and just kind of see if we can give more of an informational session to council on that before we do a whole budget building process on that. And then the budget committee meetings are already set in here. The financial forecast meeting is going to be April 22nd. And then the first biennial meeting will be April 29th. And then the second one, May 6th. And then the third and final one, May 13th. And then during that midpoint year, we'll have one budget committee meeting in May, so in 2026. And then again, the property taxes will be levied for that following fiscal year in June. And then you'll probably see one supplemental budget also in June. And so how do we make this transition to a biennium? So city council will need to pass the resolution before you to change the relevant municipal code. The city will develop a transition plan, which we've called Operation Quadratic, when we've been working on that. There will be significant upfront staff time to make the move operationally, and there'll be education of department heads to learn how to budget for 2 years versus 1 year at a time, and to kind of project out their needs. And then the budget committee terms will change from 3 years to 4-year appointments. And then our financial forecast will move to a 4-year forecast so we can see at least one biennium ahead. And that's it. Anybody have any questions?
Councilor McBride.
Well, I think this is a great idea. I mean, it makes sense. And from staff time, I mean, good Lord, this is gonna save a lot of headaches for staff, and I don't know why we didn't think about this a long time ago. Well, Will probably thought of it, and thank you very much.
Katie actually suggested it first to me, but this was 3 years ago. But we had so many internal reforms to do that we're only now getting to this. But yeah, the 7,000 hours that we save on an annual basis can be rededicated to other things that council wants us to look at. For example, how we do the rates model is something that we've been asked to look at. It will be a lot easier to do that in the off year
Yeah.
if we're not also building a budget at the same time.
Or River Street. There's lots of other things going on that will be, yeah.
Any more questions for Katie? If not, would somebody like to make a motion?
I move we adopt resolution number 2024-3947.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to adopt resolution 2024-3947. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Imagine that.
Back with one more show, the ordinances.
All right. That was the last item on our agenda, was it not? So that was the last item on our agenda. Councilor Cloyd?
Yes, Mayor, I'd just like to, we had a altercation in our neighborhood not too long ago. A lady was not feeling too safe and we had 3 officers respond and they came away feeling much better. So I just wanted to commend, Officer Rise, Officer Krebs, and Officer Cooley. I'm doing a fabulous job. Good group of guys. Thank you, Chief.
So, that being said, the meeting's adjourned.